Hey everyone, welcome back to Trek on the Tube. Today we are talking about Star Trek Discovery Season 3 Episode 12, There Is a Tide. This is my review and Easter eggs video as usual. First my thoughts and my opinions, then the Easter eggs and references I could find. This probably won't be my longest video because I don't have that much to say, but I'll try to dive into some details. Before we begin though, Happy New Year! Happy 2021! Thank you all so much for being a part of this journey. Thank you all so much for joining me on this channel and watching. You're the best. You are the best. I hope everything goes well in this new year for you all. I hope 2021 is a flawless year for everybody. Alright, that would be nice. Alright, let's do this. There is a tide. There is a tide is what I would call a it's what makes the show kind of episode. And I know that may sound quite bizarre, but hear me out. Whether it's in the original series, The Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, Voyager, etc., every show has its own it's what makes the show episodes. They're not bad episodes, let me just make that very clear, nor are they letdowns. It's just that even if they do slightly expand on one character or another, and perhaps present us with a new world or civilization, at the end of the day, removing one of these episodes wouldn't have any impact, because they are not bright, poignant, defining moments in their respective series runs. However, removing all of them would be devastating because the it's what makes the show episodes are filled with the mundane, the small details, the B-plots that in the end play a huge part in crafting the canvas that each show and cast is. And at this point, now that I've explained everything I needed to explain in great detail and precision, and you know exactly what I'm on about, you're probably trying to apply this definition of sorts to the most recent episode of Star Trek Discovery. And you're probably thinking, it doesn't work. It doesn't apply. How could it? There Is a Tide is set up for the finale. It's the return of guest characters, the arrival of new ones, the death of a friend. It's a deeper dive into who the villain actually is and how this future Federation functions. Well, yeah, I guess you're right. It is all that. Inevitably so, due to the serialized nature of the show. This episode specifically, even if it isn't the last, has to be a sort of culmination of payoffs. It's also a not so subtle but appreciated nod to the classic action film Die Hard. And yet, is it excellent? No. Is it awful? Hell no. Is it different or does it stand out in any way from Discovery as a whole? In particular Season 3? No. And so, it simply is one of those episodes that makes Discovery. But you know what? I'm content with that. I'm fine with that. Yes, Tilly's sudden self-confidence boost seems unnatural and almost out of character, but there are no huge plot holes or overdone emotional scenes. There are no confusing, inexplicable, out-of-place and time technologies that come into play in a major way. Okay, fine. Burnham has no socks, and her advanced future tech isn't able to conjure up a dermal regenerator, and those things are like that simply because they were needed to be like that in order to really hammer down the Die Hard homage. But when plot conveniences are small enough, we can overlook them. It's not like the other Star Treks never had any, right? So yeah, story-wise, this thing worked for me. I did enjoy the whole retake the ship premise, and it was fun enough seeing that unfold from both the perspective of the crew and Burnham. The Stamets conflict worked well, even if it ended with extreme measures being taken. The negotiations, the peace talks, the parley, however you want to call them, they were pretty damn cool. Osira finally got some depth added to her, and come on, every scene Admiral Vance is in is simply elevated by his presence. It was a bit of a shame that Osira's character growth was immediately undercut by her own actions afterward when she killed Rin in cold blood on the Discovery Bridge, but that scene helped set up something else, Aurelio's change of heart. Because yes, Kenneth Mitchell has yet again returned to Star Trek, but they didn't just give him a throwaway character, they gave him a scientist working for Osira, one of the most brilliant scientists in the galaxy, and he was saved by Osira yet blinded to who she truly is. And that character, the scenes he was given, the very short yet excellently executed growth were all so good. I can't say as much for the return of Zareh, however. I liked seeing him again, and the performances are still good, although arguably less nuanced, I found. It's just that I personally didn't want him to be part of the Emerald Chain upper echelon. It feels like it takes away from not only the size of the fictional universe, but also the uniqueness of the character. The action sequences were fun, the acting is good, the makeup has its ups and downs, but the VFX were real good this time around. It was very well directed, so much so that I actually went and looked up who directed it. Yes, I don't look at the names when I watch the opening credits. It spoils things. Anyway, it was directed by Jonathan Frakes. To my surprise, but not really. What I mean is I had known he was supposed to direct yet another episode near the end of the season, but I forgot about it, and I also had no idea which one. So when I saw it was this one, it all came back to me, and it made sense. It was wonderfully lit, too, except maybe the Jeffries tubes. I found there was a lot going on in there. There was blue, there was red, there were big ports, there were little ports, there were tubes. This is a whole lot of things, and I think generally speaking, Jeffries tubes are kind of cleaner than that. But whatever. All around, this was a very acceptable episode of television. Nothing to start popping champagne about, but you know what? It's at a level that I would enjoy seeing Discovery stabilize at. And on that note, we move on to the Easter eggs and references I could find. I told you the review wouldn't be too long. For starters, concerning the Federation and Starfleet, they seem to have become one and the same. Earlier in the season, it was specified both now live under the same roof, and I think all of us took that as both separate organizations simply exist within this shield bubble, but based on what Vance says here, it would seem they are truly now just one thing, no longer two. I say this because he calls himself Admiral of the Federation, and that's never really been done before, so yeah. I do have a video on my channel that explains the United Federation of Planets to some certain extent, and only as far as the shows were out at the time. I'll put a link in the description, and I probably will make another video about Starfleet itself as well, but yeah, I just wanted to point that out here. Anyway, the Federation, even if it's changed now, still has a president. We didn't get to see that person in this episode, but here are some examples of past UFP presidents. During the negotiations, Osira and Vance go over the proposed text for the new Federation, and the very first paragraph is named Article 1. Considering it starts talking about a non-interference directive, we can safely assume this would be the new version or the updated version of the Prime Directive, aka General Order 1. Vance explains that the apple he's eating, like everything else on the table, is in fact shit, or more to the point, recycled shit. As Trekkies, we've known this for a while, but Star Trek doesn't often remind us so explicitly, although Trip did have to talk about human waste recycling in one Enterprise episode.
A poop question, sir?
We now move on to more random things. Book and Burnham use transwarp conduits. We've heard mention of these all season. The concept was first introduced in Voyager. The two of them then emerge and crash land, to some certain extent, right into the Discovery's shuttle bay, a maneuver seen before in Star Trek V, The Final Frontier, executed by the character robbed of his own movie, Sulu.
Thompson!
Proximity alert.
4,
Proximity alert.
3,
Proximity alert.
2,
Proximity alert.
1. Brace for impact.
This Emerald Chain member is of the same species as one of the girls and her mother from the short Trek's Children of Mars. As of now, that species remains unnamed. Osira is said to have pulled off a similar move to the one in this episode on a planet called Benthos 4. The Benthos system was previously mentioned in Voyager and established as being a place in the Delta Quadrant. I know this isn't really a big deal, but I'd like to mention that in this episode we got a closer look at the Emerald Chain logo. We've seen this thing pop up throughout the entire season on badges, on rings, etc., but this was a much bigger and clearer view. Personal and very small gripe, sometimes this show feels so outdated, you know, so 2000s. Osira and the Emerald Chain take control of the Discovery, and so they hack the system, but we have to remind the audience by having these giant Emerald Chain logos turning on the screen. Oh my god. Anyway, it feels X-Men almost. Okay. Some of the crew use Morse code and mention it's still taught in the academy, which I didn't think was the case, honestly. I kind of remember it being a long-lost thing, but don't quote me on that. I'll have to go and look up some episodes. The Dot 23s are clearly an advancement of the Dot 7s first introduced in Discovery and yet never seen again in any of the other iterations. The ones that roll up at the end each have different colored eyes, the classic Starfleet yellow, red, and blue. I think it's safe to say that these are kind of comparable to the exocomps that were introduced in the next generation, but maybe not. Maybe the exocomps are fully sentient beings while these Dot 23s are just, I don't know, very well coded AI systems. I'm talking about the ones that haven't been possessed by Zora, of course. We finish off with a few bigger things. Kenneth Mitchell returns, as we just mentioned. We've seen him in Discovery before as Cole Shah, and Tanavik. He also did a few voices in a Lower Decks episode, but I won't get into that, as do not spoil anything. As the entire internet has mentioned, the Burnham subplot from the episode was a remake, or an homage, however you want to see it, to the action film Die Hard. So was the Next Generation episode Starship Mine. And something else that was mentioned a million times on the internet, I kind of feel obligated to say this. This was the 800th outing of Star Trek, if you were to include all of the episodes separately, all of the short treks, and all of the movies. This is the 800th product of Star Trek, or however you want to project, outing, however you want to put it. Anyway, so much Star Trek, so much, and it will get to 1,000 real soon. I'm telling you, with the 50,000 shows that have been announced. All right, that's it. That's enough. I'm rambling on. I'll see you next week for the finale. Ooh. Thank you so much for watching. Like, subscribe, share with your friends. A big thanks, as usual, to the channel patrons. You're the best. And everybody, live long and prosper. Have a happy 2021.